Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's cold up in here in Jersey, 26 degrees. It is cold. It's about 8:46 in the morning. Woo, woo. Snow, 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 snow. Worked out this morning. Not sitting in my truck, about to go in the house. Had my breakfast prior to working out, and then I packed my post-workout breakfast. Here it is. It's 8 ounces of egg liquid whites, mixed with my vegan protein powder. That alone gives me 50 grams. So I already had 50 grams in the morning prior to working out, 50 grams now after workout. That's a total of 100 grams of protein. And then I gotta just get 100 more in a day to give me 200 for the day. Try to be in between 175, 200. That's me. That's my personal goals. And I also have in here a banana. And the thing that makes it the best, taste so delicious, is chocolate hazelnut butter. Trust you me. Off the chart. Also for real. So good. So, hold on. Had to get a little swig of it. I'll finish it once I'm done with this. Well, to God be the glory. First of all, I'm just going to ask God to give me wisdom, knowledge, and understanding so I can break down something that I think is so relevant, and essential and important. So many people are being tripped up and messed up concerning this issue. So I basically want to deal with how God views things versus religious people. Religious people are not Christians. You're not born again. Religious people are people who go to church and they always condemn people. And I'll deal with that later. So I just want to make that plain when I always talk about 21st century nutcases. They're faithful to church. You'll never beat them going to church or anything like that. They're at every conference and everything like that. But yet alone, they condemn people. I'm not talking about judging. They condemn people. And I want to look at Jesus' take on religious people and people that are not religious. Again, Christians don't judge. Christians don't condemn. We don't condemn people. We don't put people down. We don't beat people up. Christians, our job is to lift people up, to encourage people, and to tell them the truth now. Tell them the truth in love, but not out of a condemning spirit. But now let me get to where I'm going. So, first of all, you like my little gloves? I like them because I can mess with things, my phone and stuff like that, and then flip my little mitt on when I get out there and I go, oh. But anyway, real quick, the book of Luke, the 18th chapter. Let's just start at verse 9. And if you see this phone close to my face, trust me, this bro can't see without his reading glasses on, and I don't got them on me. And it says, and he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves. Bam. Key number one. It's talking about Jesus spoke a parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. They trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. We're going to look into that just a little bit here. Jesus says, now in the 10th verse, 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the house of God. The one was a Pharisee. You know, Pharisees are religious people. And the other a publican. A publican was despised by these religious people. Publicans were considered sinners. People that didn't have a relationship with God based upon their dedication to the things of God, church, and how they dressed, and all those different things. It's a whole lot, and I have books to prove all these things, and I'll deal with that another time. But let's just just go there for now. Then verse 11 says, wait a minute, hold on, let me go back. These two men went up into the temple to pray. First of all, in the Jewish culture, they prayed 3 times a day, especially back then. They prayed at 9 in the morning, noon, and at 3 o'clock. 3 times a day. 1, 2, 3. Got it. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. The Bible says that he stood and prayed thus with himself. Let me see what he said. And said, God, I thank you that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. Wow. Look at this bull. Look at this dude in church and let's look at that for a minute. The first thing that is evident that Jesus is pointing out is that his prayer wasn't sincere. Number one, because the Bible says he prayed by himself. He was isolated. Religious people are isolated. They have this thing, they have their own world, their own culture. And their attitude is, you're not on my level. And until you follow our protocol, we'll never consider you a person that loves and worship God. So they separate themselves from people who don't meet their criteria, naturally and spiritually. I'm gonna deal with that in a minute. Okay, so now let me go on. It says, I thank God that I'm not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. That is funny. Now, here he is in the house of God, supposed to be connecting with God, and yet he's isolated. He's better than everybody else. And then while he's communicating with God, he's really showing what's in his heart by what comes out of his mouth. He said, I'm glad, Lord, that I ain't like everybody else. I ain't like these people that's committing adultery, these extortioners, these sinners, these unjust folks. I'm glad I ain't like them at all. But yet the Apostle Paul, before I get to the Apostle Paul, the Bible says Jesus came to seek and save that which is lost. Everybody that he's identifying, that he's glad that he's not like, and that he separated himself from, is the very ones that Christ left glory from. He left all his divinity to come and get a beat down, an ultimate beat down, to get his butt whooped, one, to be humiliated, and to be ultimately killed. Christ gave his life for everybody that he don't even want to associate with. And here he is in the house of God, communicating with God about these people in a negative light. Wow. Could that be you? You want a minute. But anyway. So he's throwing off in the house of God. And then he ends his prayer. No, he ends that little litany with, and just like this publican. So now he's throwing off on everybody that he doesn't consider to be right. And in the midst of doing that, the other person that was in the house of God, he had already condemned him and made a judgment by what came out of his mouth. He said, and this publican. So he's praying, throwing off on the people that God loves, and the person that's in the church with him that he feels is not right with God, he's thanking God while he's in God's house. I'm glad I ain't like them. I'm glad I ain't still doing this. I could preach on this stuff. But anyway, the Apostle Paul later on in the New Testament tells the church, he says this, he says, and such were some of you. In other words, he was telling these people, this church he had called out, he said, you used to be just like these people. You may not have done all of it, but you were just like these folks. Religious people, they forget where they came from. They forget when they was prostitutes and whores and running around with men and married folks and sleeping around and smoking dope in the middle of the night out in the street, doing anything because they was addicted on drugs and living all kind of alternate lifestyles. But now that they done quote unquote self-cleaned themselves up, God didn't wash them because their hearts aren't right. They self-cleaned themselves up. They said, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. They came to the altar and I don't smoke no more. I don't drink no more. I don't run around no more. I don't snuff no tobacco no more. All that crazy stuff they be saying. And so what they're really saying is, I'm glad I'm not like these other. I don't do what you do no more.